Watching Kyle's unboxing videos again?
Yeah, he always finds the coolest... No way! A robot dog? Gotta ask where he got it.
Or use your Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra. Just draw a circle around the dog on your screen, and it shows you where to buy it right in the app.
Whoa, I just learned a new trick. And that for once, I beat Kyle to the next big thing.
Circle it, find it with the new Galaxy S24 Ultra and circle the search with Google. Get yours now at Samsung.com. Internet connection required. Results may vary based on visuals.
A fabulous free kick from Leighton Baines. Dawson, oh, what a finish from Glenn Dawson, it's 2-0. It's scored by Tim Cahill in injury time for Everton. Matheson, the 16-year-old, to Wilbraham, the 40-year-old. Stunning from James Rodriguez. And here into Henderson! And Ian Henderson, right on half-time.
Welcome everybody to episode 8 of the Men in Blue podcast. My name is Greg, I'm a Rochdale supporter. I'm here as ever with Jimmy and Matt, Everton supporters. How you doing, lads? You okay?
Not bad at all, yeah. Good evening, everyone.
I'm good, Greg. All good, mate.
Got a special guest on this week, one of my friends. We go way back a few years, another Rochdale fan. Danny Richardson. How you doing, Danny? You okay?
Yeah, I'm alright, mate. Thanks, yeah. Cheers for having me on.
Superb. So, I think this particular episode, it's going to be focused on Rochdale's relegation, really. There's no two ways about it. We've been relegated. Ironically, we beat MK Dons 3-0 away from home. I know, Danny, you watched that game, didn't you? You watched it on the iFollow.
Yeah.
Obviously, looking at the result, it doesn't look like we didn't down tools, did we, really, with the looks of it? It looks like we went out in a bit of a blaze of glory there, a little bit.
I mean, I guess that kind of performance might have been on the cards when you've just been relegated. You want to show the fans that like you're not that bad as you might have been for most of the season. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes you get that performance in the last game of the season from relegated teams, don't you? I thought like we played quite well. They were rubbish. They were really flat. A bit like us really. They had a lot of ball at the back but didn't kind of do much with it, which obviously we've had spells of. Yeah, I thought we were quite direct, but I thought we created a lot of chances, had a lot of shots. And we had a little conversation after the game, didn't we, about like the body language and because I was trying to like kind of picking up what you kind of asked me about. I was trying to pick up on players that didn't look up for it and sort of was trying to read into that they might be leaving. Yeah, like people like Humphreys and one or two others. But yeah, it's difficult to say because MK Dons, like I say, were pretty flat, so it's difficult to kind of, measure the commitment to the cause when the other team's quite, it's kind of letting you have it or not really threatening you much. So yeah, I thought it was a decent performance, but it was like they didn't put on much of a fight. Like
it's one of those where I wish we could have performed like that earlier in the season. I know, obviously, we've had some decent results fairly recently. I think we won 3, drew 2, something like that. At what point did they realise, we need to get results here? I know situations become a bit more narrow that we were talking about in the last episode where you need 6 points, you need 5, or this needs to happen for that to survive and things like that. I often wonder how we go about doing that in terms of, is it February, March, April? When do alarm bells really go off for Rochdale? It's a bit of a strange one sometimes.
Yeah, I don't think the urgency and the kind of, like especially the change to the 3-5-2, that didn't come as early as it should have done. And I think the urgency, the pressing, the intensity really stepped up a notch in those like kind of must-win games, which it's always gonna, but then you just like, you can't help but wonder like, why aren't you playing like that before? And also kind of why doesn't BBM see the need to switch to that 3-5-2, which is obviously so successful for us. Like it worked. We looked so much more solid. Like, kind of at what stage in his head and even his interviews, he was always like relaxed, and I think he's talked about that before, but how he tried to kind of deflect the pressure off the players in his interviews. But I just got the sense that he wasn't as worried as the fan base was. until kind of those last games where it was everything was riding on the results, and we did pretty well in terms of the results. Apart from Doncaster, we kind of got the results that we needed to get, but it was a big ask because we probably left it too late, like I said.
It's interesting because one of the lads at work is he's a Man City fan, and I was talking to him about Rochdale, and he said, "Oh, but Rochdale always stay up," and I don't know if that's last 4 years or whatever we've stayed up. Oh, you've just done it. Obviously, the Joe Thompson match against Charlton, things like that. Is that something? I'll send this one to Jimmy and Matt. Actually, is that something? Obviously, on the outside looking in, do you always think, oh, Rochdale, they'll stay up, they've done it before, last 4 or 5 years? Is that something that, looking outwards, you think of Dale?
I have to admit, I thought you would stay up. But also, it's one of those where, like with Dale, there's been other examples, certainly in the Premier League, with likes of Wigan and Sunderland, where teams will stay up season on season, they'll perform the Great Escape. Every year feels like the Great Escape. But it can only be sustainable for so long, though, until, and this isn't like a know your place, get in your lane type comment, but until it becomes not inevitable, but harder and harder to stay up, and you do just naturally drop because you've been so used to fighting year on year and almost just aiming just to stay, 20th, 19th, whichever, 18th in the league. To the point where other teams will overtake you. Teams coming up from League Two will have ambitions of getting the look of likes of Lincoln, for example, in the playoffs this year. They've come from the National League not long ago, and they could be in the Championship next season. You think, well, it's a tough one because yes, I thought, oh, they'll always stay up, but then you think, well, there's got to come a point. Not there's got to come a point, but if you keep fighting relegation, eventually it's gonna get you. Like we saw with Sunderland sacking their manager. It used to be that thing, didn't it, where they'd struggle, sack a manager about March and then stay up, and that cycle of eventually it fell flat. And same with Wigan. They'd survived the last day. It felt like about 5 years in a row before they eventually went down. So it's a funny one, really, because obviously I wanted to stay up, and I think you're a cracking club. But this time it felt different. It felt like there was, from the outside looking in, a bit of a resignation around the club that with COVID, with the fact there's no fans in the stadium, because I know you've been so reliant on your home form with your fans behind you. And I think that did have an impact on the players, certainly at home this season, with the goals conceded as well. And it kind of felt like, well, if you're conceding goals, 3, 4, 5 goals in a game, how many goals have you got to score to stay up? You've got to start by being solid at the back. Like I've said in this podcast a few times, start with a scrappy 1-0 win or a 0-0 draw. That's what gets you out of the mire, not winning 4-3, because eventually the goals will dry up. So it's been a funny one, really, from my perspective. I did think you stay up, but it does come. It happens to a lot of sides in that sort of cycle, season on season.
It was like a mad season in terms of that because overall we just weren't consistent enough, which is obviously like usually what happens with a relegated side. But sometimes you get like a relegated side who are just like bad all year. Like for example, Sheffield United this year just bad all year, really, especially compared to last year. But like this year, we were just we had like weird phases. Like there was a phase where we were creating loads of chances but not scoring, had so much of the ball, but just like I alluded to before, like having so much of the ball and not really doing anything with it. And then we were creating loads of chances but not scoring them. And then we started conceding loads. And then we had that mad January where we were like scoring loads and conceding loads. It was just all over the place. Like it was we weren't good at anything like all at the same time. Do you know what I mean? If we could keep a clean sheet, I think after the run of all the like the 4-4 and the 3-4 and the 3-3 with Wigan, those mad results there, I think we had like maybe a couple of 0-0s and a 1-0. Like the results seemed to go, flip on the head. We just had like just spells of different things just not working. Do you know what I mean? Like it wasn't. We weren't just bad all year, and also like we weren't in the relegation zone for like the majority of the season. We were floating around where we have been finishing sort of 17, 18, and most Dale fans would have bit your hand off at that at the start of the season. It's probably where most people would predict. But it was an odd one in terms of like what problems we had. and then that's just on the pitch, isn't it? Like, it's mad off the pitch as well. So
No. It is mad. It kind of felt a bit like somebody was playing a video game with Rochdale for half a season, because it would be like endless, 5-5, 4-4, 3-3. And it was like, as if to coin a Gary Neville phrase, like a 10-year-old with a PlayStation controller. As well, it kind of also reminded me of Blackpool 10 years ago under Ian Holloway. Entertaining, good attacking football at times, but ultimately you need more than just being exciting and having high-scoring games in order to stay in any division, whether it's Premier League, League One, National League, whatever it may be.
Again, from the outside looking in, I always thought they've got enough to stay up. The issue you probably had more is you had chances to stay up. Then they've gone down by a point. And it's not the losses that have cost you, it's actually the draws that have cost you more. What was it? Was it 3-3 against... I forgot who you were playing. Wimbledon. Was it a 96-minute equaliser or something stupid like that? It kind of sums up the season, where I think if you turn, you just grind out a couple of results that are draws into wins, you're probably 5-6 points clear. And yeah, you're still in a relegation battle, but never seemingly right down in it. But it's tough, and having looked at it from the season, defensively it was always going to cost you in a fortunate way, and unfortunately it has.
But you can caveat that a bit with saying, you went down by a point, but that was by virtue of the 3-0 win over MK Dons. If going into the final day, a win would have meant something, i.e. you would have had a chance of staying up, do you think the players would have performed with that pressure off their shoulders? Because it would have been a case of, MK Dons may have been, and I know they hit really good form, they could have even hit the playoffs, the way they were playing second half of the season, but they had a bad patch at the start of the year. They were on the beach, I think, as well. And that's not to discredit the Dale result, but I think with, end of season, who you're performing for, there's no fans in the stadium, just, go for it. You're playing for contracts for next season, really. I think that's the case for every player on that pitch. But would Dale, knowing a win might have actually meant something, actually performed as well as they did, which is, because obviously would it have been more nervy for them?
It's difficult to say, really, because the Wimbledon game had a lot riding on it. And look what happened. And look what happened in that game. If you isolate it, as there was a lot of pressure on that game, and I don't know how many times me and Danny and a few others have texted each other saying must win, must win. Said it about 6 times this season. And I know the outcomes. Like I said before, things get narrow. You need 5 points, you need 4 points, but shouldn't really be saying this is must win because such a thing might happen. They should just be winning games comfortably. Competing in League One, but it didn't pan out that way. It's just. Yeah, can't really you can't encapsulate it in a sentence. Really, there's a lot of things to get through in the season, and there was something that obviously BBM's contract got renewed for another year in December that the fans didn't know about, which is something we'll try and get onto in a minute. But from looking, we didn't know about that information, but when it came through from the fans forum, you could sort of see from that particular point where the fans figured out that his contract was renewed, that all the results went crazy after that particular 2 weeks. Everything went bonkers, like 4-4, 3-3, losing 3-0 or something. And it just seemed that from that point everything went crackers. And I think Danny might be able to elaborate on some of that as well.
Well, the result. Well, we don't know exactly when it was given to him, do we? Was it December before Christmas? Well, then it was that January that we're talking about, like the 3-3 and the 4-4 and the 3-3 and like there was, I think their justification was that they were waiting, which is bonkers anyway. They were waiting for like results to kind of like be good before they announced it. I think that's actually what they said. They were sort of like, I don't know, like 3 back-to-back wins, like what's good, like I don't know. And we were never gonna get that, like you know what I mean. We were down that end of the table anyway for a reason. I think genuinely, I think that's what they said. They were waiting for, because they didn't want the contract announcement to come out at a time where results weren't optimum. I don't know. I mean, it's madness. And
I love the idea. Like, sorry, go on.
I mean, Cambridge, gave their manager an extension, and they did something bonkers on Twitter. They just like announced it and said we've extended our. It's like, look, that's what a normal club does. Just tweets it as soon as it's happened.
I know. How about that? A formal announcement on social media and a website.
I know.
Oh, wow, that is so, inventive and great initiative there. That's
I love the idea they
wow.
sign a
Who's ever done
player.
that before?
Well,
They sign a striker. No one knows about it until he turns up on the starting 11 a week later. Oh yeah, by the way, guys, he's playing. Yeah, ignore us.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. It's fine.
Security don't let him in the ground. Who are you? I'm playing. No, you're not. Who are you? Don't recognise you. They signed me. Don't say anything about that on the website.
Yeah, I mean, you don't hear of it. I've spoke to different fans who support different clubs at work and my mates and all sorts and people, what have you, and you never hear of that where a manager's had his contract renewed and you don't hear about it for 3 months.
I can understand what they were trying to do. The logic even is full of holes. Because what if results never got any better? And you're relegated by middle of March. By the way...
what if you hypothetically lost every single game between that point and the end of the season? Oh, we're down, lads, in March. Oh, by the way, we've renewed the manager's contract by a year.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is it wasn't even them biting the bullet and go, we're just going to announce this. It was a fan's question at the forum about the manager's contract, and the director, who was like standing in for the chairman, was answering the question because obviously he's the director who's on the board, and he was like, it's May 2021, isn't it? And then to the manager, and the manager goes, no, actually it's May 2022, and he goes, all right, yeah, I must have got that wrong. And then everyone, you can see it on YouTube. Everyone just goes, what?
It's like
all right,
something...
next question, just sort of like brush that under the carpet.
Yeah.
So, like, the other point is like when would they have done it if the fan doesn't ask that question, or the host guy doesn't pass on that question? Like, when would they have done it?
It's like something out of Mike Bassett, isn't it?
Yeah,
I was thinking Mike Bassett.
I know we've referenced him before, but it really is like, it's something you'd expect to see in like a comedy series about a football team.
I don't think it's gotten enough national attention. Like, I think it's absolutely unprecedented that a club would do that. I don't think
more should have been made of that. Definitely,
more people need to know about it. Maybe we need to make it your
absolutely. Well, we've got listeners now in the USA, Belgium, and now Oman. So I think we're on 3 continents. So therefore, we're basically worldwide. We're spreading the word.
Yeah.
I love it. The United fans moaning about the Glazers' lack of communication. Never mind them. Go to Rochdale.
Get to Rochdale. Yeah, you want real communication? Go a couple miles down the road.
Really bad communication. Come to Rochdale.
Yeah. They write the tweets in wingdings.
I mean, we're laughing about it, but at the time it was a lot of fans were pissed off about it. The fans forum was like, it was still going on as we were recording a podcast, Jimmy and Matt. So I didn't get that news until whatever. I didn't get it straight away. So that was one where I got it later on. I was like, what? But like one of the other Dale fans said, yeah, he said he was watching it on YouTube and the comments section just blew up on the left panel. It just went, and we're like, what the fuck? It's like, it's just like someone's hammering the keyboards. It's like, right, okay, fair enough.
But even after that, like they put like sort of like a summary of the fans forum on the website the next day. It was like, thank you for everyone for tuning in, blah 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 blah. One sentence: we can confirm the expiry of BBM's contract is May 2020. It's not even like an apology. Like, it was awful.
Oh my word.
Unbelievable.
It worries me one day. What if you ever move stadium? Fans first day of the season turn up. Where's the team?
Hang on a minute.
Hang on.
But I mean, looking back, I think Danny might have mentioned it just before. Looking back in some of BBM's interviews, he doesn't come across like he's under a lot of pressure.
Not surprised. So another 3 years of his contract, you're not aware of it.
Yeah. He's got another 5-year extension in, mate.
2026 is what he...
Yeah. He's got a lifetime contract. He's honorary life president.
But fans were picking up on it then. Fans were picking up on it before they knew that his contract had been extended, and they were saying that he's talking as if there's no pressure on. He doesn't feel the pressure, and he's talking with a lot of I feel as if blah blah blah. You know, not dismissive, but his body language and how he were, you could tell that he wasn't quite worried about things, and maybe. You know, maybe that's one of the reasons why we got relegated as well, because maybe if you know, I do like BBM, we've, you know, one way or another. I know, obviously, results haven't gone our way and we've been relegated and things like that. There is a lot of good points to BBM that we'll get to eventually, you know, today. But you just look at his body language sometimes and you think he's not really fighting in terms of, like, I don't know, like Hilly had a bit of, I know that's another thing later on about Hilly, but Hilly had a bit of a bite about him in his pre-match, post-match interviews, and like, we need to do this, and you know, there's a bit more coming through the screen, if you will, sometimes with Hilly. Whereas BBM, you don't particularly get that, but people still read between the lines of what he was saying. He's not feeling the pressure, or it's not coming through.
Yeah.
But if that could possibly have been a domino effect to the players, if he's not particularly, you know, if he's not coming across as if he's really worried, maybe the players weren't.
Well, do you think his contract extension was basically a sort of a message of whatever you do, it's enough for us? You're sort of hovering around the relegation zone, doesn't matter, it's enough for us. And also then the knowledge as well for BBM that they can't afford to sack me. They've got me on another year with the pandemic, with the finances. They can't afford to sack me. I've got another year of this gig at least. Whatever I do, if I take the club down, it's still going to be seen as enough by the board because they've extended my contract. So whatever I do, I want to keep them up, but if not, manana, you know, I'm still going to be here, still going to rebuild the club, rebuild the team and that might sort of simmer down to the team as well, whether they've got contracts for next season or not, that whatever you do, lads, it's enough, because they might just renew your contract anyway. I don't know, I'm just speculating, but it feels like, you know, that's sort of the message that comes across to me is you're doing well enough just by being here almost. It's, we almost can't get anyone else in, so I don't know.
So where were you in the league when they, in inverted commas, announced his extension back in, was it March, you said? Roughly, were you in relegation zones at that point, or was it still...
No, I'd say we were like guessing. I'd say we floated most of the season around sort of like between maybe 15th and 18th. I'd say we were around there. But I looked at the results for December. That we think he got his contract extended before the new year, like just before New Year. And the results in December, we beat the first game in December. Then we beat Plymouth. We beat Plymouth like maybe 4-0 or 4-1. And then we beat Wigan at the end of December, but we lost all the others. So the form wasn't even that good when they gave him the contract. It's not as if he was on the back of like I say, 3 wins on the trot or 4 wins on the trot. So
it does seem an odd thing to do. It does seem a very weird logic.
It feels a bit like a football manager type thing where you got that one player scores you a really big goal in one game and you offer £1 million a week contract out of excitement. It's a bit like when you beat Wigan 5-0, the board have gone, give him all the money we want, give him a contract, we've just beaten Wigan 5-0. Oh, he's actually accepted it. We best not tell the fans about this for another 3 months.
What you said about like the expectations and the contract, I think is quite valid. Like I think there was a lot of talk of sort of managed relegation after that forum too. The language from coming out the club from directors and the chief exec David Bottomley, who gets a lot of stick, was like they they're not worried about relegation. That they feel like they've got a plan in place, or if we get relegated and they weren't kind of going to pull out all the stops to stop us getting relegated, like i.e. pull the trigger on the manager. Yeah, I think a lot of that. I was nodding along to that. I think a lot of that rings true. I think they were very kind of unconcerned by relegation. It's another criticism of the board.
Yeah, I mean, as a flip it the other way though, you could say that they had a contingency plan in case the club went down. You could see it as, look, you know, relegation is not going to hit you as hard as maybe, say, I don't know, Bristol Rovers or a Swindon. Swindon have gone through managers a lot. Bristol Rovers obviously got Joey Barton in charge, who's going to command a fair fee to be as the manager there. And you feel like maybe the club were sort of managing their money somewhat wisely in case of relegation. They can afford to have a few years or bounce straight back up and not be overly hurt by dropping down a division? I don't know. You know far more about the club's finances than I do.
I mean, we don't.
Oh, fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, fair enough. Oh, is it? The
I mean, that's
communication's
part of
that
the problem.
bad, right?
I think
Okay.
it's part of the problem. Like, like I say, there's a bit of animosity towards like the chief exec, and a lot of it
Right.
stems from the fact that like, there's accusations of like mismanagement of money, and where's this money from the Dawson move gone and stuff like that, and we kind of we've as Rochdale fans, you kind of get used to the line that we're little old Rochdale, we don't have a lot of money, we can't do this, we can't afford to do this. Like, we're only getting a scoreboard because like a Rochdale fan like RIP lost his life and decided to donate his legacy. He's left all his money to Rochdale and his will. Like, this thing, there's kind of chronic
Almost feels like a community-run club, almost.
skepticism. I would say like there's a long-running skepticism about the finances and kind of where's this money going? Why haven't we got the money to, I don't know, afford to keep a few players? Sorry, my cat keeps biting me.
It's all right.
That's a new one for the podcast.
Maybe he knows about Rochdale's finances.
Yeah, maybe she's like bottomless mole.
Oh, maybe that's it. Maybe she's playing centre forward for next season. It's just not been announced yet.
She'll be the mascot. Or he.
Yeah, that's it.
Spot on what Danny's on about, because in terms of, for instance, the scoreboard, I don't remember one, but apparently there was one above Sandy Lane about 98, but I don't remember it, and it weren't there for long. And then we had one, I think we were very close to reaching the playoffs about 3 years ago. They had like a weird one on the back of a car, did they? At the left side of Sandy Lane when we played Bradford at home.
Vaguely rings a bell, yeah. It sounds tin pot enough to be true.
I don't doubt you're kidding 1 second.
They had one in between the away end and Sandy Lane, sort of that gap, and they reversed the car, and there was a massive screen on the back of a pole, and they were trying to. It's very Phoenix Nights. This
Fair dues. Make it work.
You might as well have two supporters with like pieces of
You
paper,
call
just
it,
like
you call it a
whiteboards.
cracking little club, so it is Phoenix Nights, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what Danny's on about with the scoreboard is true, that these things, what normal football clubs, well, not normal, but other football clubs have, like Oldham, both, whoever, they've got scoreboards and they've got such a thing, and we've never really. I always feel that sometimes we're still catching up on things. We're still, we it's hard to say. It's like we're getting electronic ticketing to go in and stuff, but I think that's probably been around for other teams for quite a while, and I always feel like we're playing catch up with not technology, but things we should really be having at a football club.
Training ground's the other one, isn't it? Like, for years.
We obviously we train at the Rochdale cricket ground, which it's just a pitch basically, and with a few nets in it, which obviously that's all you need sometimes, but obviously it would be nice to have a training facility for the players, and in a legacy, in a way of legacy, in terms of youth team and different age groups, and even having like your mates to play on it and things like that, like other situations. I don't know, but yeah, we are still trying to sort of catch up with. There's always like the messages on the message boards or fans forums is always the same questions basically. So it's sort of like, what about the training ground that we've been talking about for 10 years? And we've got quite a lot of players that are out of contract coming up in a few weeks. There's about 8, maybe 9 that are out of contract. Some of them are pretty good players. I'm pretty sure Matty Lundy's another one. Which players can you see, Danny, that could stay at Dale? I know obviously there's a rumour going around that they're going to have their negotiation day. Is it tomorrow? Apparently about contracts and things like that. But I suppose it depends what we can offer. But who do you think might stay and who do you think might go?
I think Jay Lynch might stay. I think he'd be decent in League Two. I think he's done all right. I think he gets a lot of unwarranted stick. I think he's all right. Who else we got there? Matt Doan, I heard that he's rejected. I'm just going off like rumours at the moment. Obviously, they're flying around. Who's out of contract? Lund, Jimmy Keown. I think he'll go. I think he's obviously he's shown that he's got a bit more about him than League Two. Who else we got?
Paul McShane.
Yeah, I mean McShane. You would imagine he's on decent money. How we're going to be able to offer the same money in League Two? There's been a lot of talk of like a coaching role with a player role for him because he's getting to the end of his career and supposed to be kind of a bit of a leader in the dressing room. So, I mean, yeah, I'd be all over that. I think he's been brilliant when he's played, but you kind of have to wrap him in cotton wool. I feel like we saved him and McLaughlin for that run-in. I feel like they knew that we're going to play all those games back to back, and they didn't play him. McLaughlin's another one. Like, he's probably on a decent enough wage that we wouldn't be able to offer him the same in League Two. Like, I'm assuming that we're not going to be able to offer the same money that it'll cost us relegation. But you know, who knows the cost of that? Yeah, if you're asking my personal opinion, I wouldn't offer McLaughlin a contract. I would have done a contract. I'd offer Lynch one, definitely. I think Lynch has got a good chance of keeping. Is that it? Who's out of contract?
I think, is it Matty Lund?
Yeah, I think we said Matty Lund. I think Matty Lund's going to go, isn't he?
O'Connell, our captain, is out of contract as well.
I think he'll go as well, yeah.
It's basically everyone we mentioned. They're going to go. Yeah.
And don't forget as well, you've got a few Lion players, haven't you? You've got the keeper, Bazzuno. You've got, who else has come on loan?
Osho's been brilliant.
Osho, yeah. Is Barr off as well to Watford, apparently?
Yeah, Barr's supposed to be going in.
We think he had a medical after the Wimbledon game or the day after. I think he stayed that way on.
Right.
And had a medical. Obviously, we spoke about that in the last episode, that we'll probably get some sort of compensation. He's a good player. He just hasn't been consistent. But I think at the same time, I don't know how much you can put on him, because he's only a kid. He's 17, 18, something like that. I don't know how much you can can he carry the club? I don't think so. So how much weight can you put on a 17 or 18-year-old? You know, it's a difficult one, really. We've had them before where we've had, obviously, like Paddy McCourt and Kevin Townsend and Lee Machiavelli, but I don't know, it's hard to say. He is a good player, but again, some great goals, but how much pressure can you put on him, really?
I think his head got turned in January by City, didn't he? I don't think it was the same after that. I think there was a period where we were relying on him quite a bit, probably a bit too much, like you kind of suggesting there. Looked like he was going to go to City, and I think he's got some heart condition, and it was a red flag for City, and they pulled the deal, I think, and then it's not been the same since. Really.
Not really. And sometimes when he comes off the bench and they give him 20 minutes, there's a bit of desperation in him, in terms of it's all a little bit rushed. He runs into a player, he sort of kicks a player, or it's not kicks a player, but it's sort of, the tackle doesn't go right. And you're thinking, I don't know if that's BBM saying to him, right, go for it, or I can't weigh it up, basically. I don't know if it's the tactics from BBM, he's telling him something, or Barr thinks himself, right, I've got to do this. But it just seemed rushed every time he were on. It just seemed like he's flying into a tackle and you think, crap, that could have been a yellow card. And then there's a shot just goes off, or he runs into the opposition with the ball. And everything he seemed to do didn't particularly pay off a lot of times. And you're just thinking, shouldn't really be relying on him. It should be up to the other players who are a bit more established to just sort of take the weight off him, really. I know we mentioned that his head were turned at the City rumours, but at the same time, like, it shouldn't all be down to the 17-year-old. You know, it's a weird one.
What about some of the young lads that come from non-league? You got like Newbie, and who's the young midfielder that you've spoken about a few times that you like? Not Grant, what's his name?
Oh, Jake Beasley's another one.
There's Beasley, sorry, yeah. Right.
But also, if you would... So basically, there's a few that are in contract that we rumoured to move. So Stephen Humphries is probably one of our best players. He's got to be, really. And he's rumoured with Stoke, Nottingham Forest, somebody else. But it's a strange one with him, because we've been saying on the group chat, like, sometimes he's just made out of Weetabix sometimes. He just can't Just can't.
Just breaks easily and just doesn't perform.
I mean, BBM talks about it in his interviews. Oh, everyone's been injured for such a long time, such weeks, and X, Y, Z, and it's unusual, and that's one of the reasons why we've been relegated as well. He always sort of brings it up how long the players have been injured for. You know, when he talks about not winning or that bad run at home we had where we didn't win for 6 months or something daft. We always seems to bring up injuries. I don't know, any manager will, I know that, but you sort of wonder then, don't you, what condition the players in if they're always injured.
I mean, we've seen that across the season, across all 4 leagues. So I don't think it's necessarily unique to the lower leagues, or because the Premier League has seen left, right, and centre, especially muscle injuries this season. So you've got to wonder what the effect was of the. I mean, no, it didn't class in the lower leagues as much, but a continuation league all the way going through. Had the players just been worked over too much this year? I don't know.
Possibly, but of course, trying to fit in 46 league games into a shortened league season when it's
exactly.
already 2 games a week from August to May, to get it from September, October to May, plus playoffs, plus Pizza John Trophy, whatever, plus FA Cup. There's so many games that you got to try and fit in, and muscle injuries, particularly as you say, Matt, are going to play a massive part lower down the pyramid. Certainly, the amount of cup games, amount of league games, but I think that's something that's been throughout the sport, really.
I mean, you can look at the numbers that we've got in the squad. We haven't really got that many players. I mean, fair enough, we can put a bench together and a starting 11, but we've never really been comfortable in terms of being able to rest players. That was never really. I don't think we've been able to do that for a while. I mean, maybe a few weeks, but there's never been. I don't think we've been able to do that for a while. Really, we've always had to rely on. Can he play what's his name, McShane? Sort of. When can we play him? Can we save him for this game? It's sort of saving players sometimes. And I know, obviously big teams can do that. I know Man United used to save players now and again, and Fergie'd say, I want you fit for this game, and things like that. But I think that's slightly different in this instance. But we just have to see how we go on next season. There is something, actually. There was a question I've got about... We didn't. I don't think we won at home for about 6 months, and I'll come to Danny with this one. Can you put a finger on what that could have been? Why, psychologically, how does that sort of manifest in terms of you get a few bad results and you lose 4 at home, but I can't put a finger on how that happened. Do you know?
No, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because you can't. If it continues, you could say that kind of the crowd weren't helping. Perhaps if they were getting on the players' backs and stuff like that. But obviously there was no crowd. I don't really know. I don't think BBM was able to explain it either. I think it was probably just one of those things where they just got into a rut with it and they just couldn't get out of, and maybe psychologically it was just a barrier. Like they were playing at home, and so. They lose, or maybe we were setting ourselves up. Perhaps we had a lot of. I mean, I'd have to look back over the games to see if it was home games or away games more. But remember at the start of the season, particularly, we were always setting up ourselves to kind of knock it around at the back, and it was a bit too slow, and we're getting pressed, and we were losing the ball. Maybe we were trying to hold the ball. We were using that style a bit more at home because perhaps we felt we had to dominate the ball a bit more, and we were just holding on for it too long, making a mistake, losing it, and perhaps that cycle was repeating itself more at home. But I don't really know. I'm just speculating there, because without fans in, it's difficult to put a finger on it, on why, isn't it? I don't really know why it would be.
I think a lot of teams have struggled without that. I mean, Everton have played 2 games this season at home with fans in, and we won both. I think last time I checked, apart from the cup games in the league. Fans, it's got to have a factor, even in the games like you say, where it feels like the fans get on the players' backs. Yeah. It's also a situation where maybe if it's 1-1 with 5 minutes to go, you're gonna have more of a not reason to go forward, but more intent to go forward, because you've got that fan behind you, and the away team then thinks, actually we might be better off sticking for a draw and just defending it. There's many reasons. I mean, it'd be strange. Well, no more next season, because hopefully we should have fans back at least. Maybe not full capacity to begin with, but a certain percentage for the first game of the season. Maybe we're going to start to see that trend of home games being better for the home team. Who knows?
Yeah.
Interesting one then.
We've spoke about it a few weeks ago about, does it really matter? Does home form matter? Does away form matter? And we were saying that this season it doesn't particularly, but then it can become a problem when you're not winning a game, because ultimately everyone, Everton, you want Everton to win. You don't want them to go on a 6-month stretch of not winning a home game.
Yeah.
So it's sort of, you do have to pick it apart sometimes and look at it and go, how did that happen? How can we stop this from happening? I know, obviously, we've talked about fans have not been in the stadiums for obviously like 98% of the season or whatever, but it's just a strange one, and it's, at one point I think we had the worst home record in England.
Maybe teams also, like, the more they see that, this team can be got at, especially at home, then they just, there was kind of, maybe, I remember Swindon, the first game of the season, did an absolute number on us, just showed everyone how to play against us. We were trying to be a bit too cute with it at the back and find like the perfect kind of angle for the pass when the opposition team had kind of been drawn out. And they just pressed us so intensively that we were just buckling under the pressure. And a lot of teams that kind of dominated us kind of copied that style. They kind of set the benchmark for this is, they're not actually good enough at what they're trying to do to kind of, do you know what I mean? And it just seemed that if you pressed us, we made a mistake, and they usually within like the first kind of 10-15 minutes, and then that was it. We didn't come back from it.
Can it be that a team can get found out every week? In terms of, we mentioned obviously Sheffield United haven't had a great season and everyone seems to be beating them or at least getting points. Can that be the case that a team can get sussed out every week?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say so.
I think so. No, all I would say really is it's down to a tactic where a lot of players and a lot of managers now want their players rather to play out the back defensively and pass it round. And if you've not got the players to do that, if you've not got the ability to do that, whether that's in the Premier League or League One, whatever, you will have teams, all they need to do is put pressure on your back four. And like you've seen countless times this season, I think I remember watching your highlights at home to Peterborough, and I remember just saying on the podcast a few months ago, just clear your lines, just get rid of the ball. They kept scoring from sort of Rochdale giving the ball away at the back. And I think if you work out, these lads will try and play at the back each week, all you have to do is get a couple of quick wingers, a couple of centre forwards, put the first line of pressure on them. Then you win the ball back within 20 yards within goal, and then you're in. And I think teams can get found out tactically. Certainly, second season syndrome, whatever division it's in. I know it's not the case with Rochdale. Obviously, it's more like seventh season syndrome. But it is a thing for a reason. And Sheffield United this season have discovered that overlapping centre backs, they've been found out with that when they not necessarily have the quality, but they've had the team ethic. They've worked hard. First season they came 9th, which is a great achievement. Completely deserved it. But yeah, I think teams can get found out week on week tactically. Definitely.
I think if you look at, the best teams, I use City as an example. If we go back to October time, was it? They were really having a tough time of it. And the funny thing is, they've kind of won the league at a canter without really playing a striker. If you look at it logically, they've only had Aguero come back recently, Jesus has started some games. But most of their goals have come from either midfield in Gundogan, or with Mahrez, Foden, and Bernardo Silva, those kind of players coming into it. So, they're blessed to have that amount of quality, but he adjusted the system to make it work best for him. And again, the Sheffield United example does make a good thing where last season it worked and worked really well for them. I think they've also struggled from lack of fans, Sheffield United, I would say, as well. Bramall Lane was a tough place to go last year. I think when the players started to when the team got found out, teams went there thinking that, well, there's no real bear pit we're walking into here. It's a team which are low on confidence. I think we won there 1-0. It was it was a terrible game of football, but we kept it in the game and got a late goal. But yeah, any team can get found out. I mean, all the best teams get. For Liverpool have been found out to a certain extent this year, albeit, yes, losing both centre half. But teams realise that let them come at you, you can get them on the counter, you're going to get a chance.
They go from being unbeaten Anfield in about 10 years, whatever it was, something stupid, it felt like 10 years, to losing 6 home games in a row. And they got found out tactically, certainly in their home performances. And they're only just recovering from that now.
It was strange because we go through patches of winning. Obviously, I take away the home form, but we went through strange patches of thinking we could probably stay up. If we were to keep that up, we could probably stay up. And then obviously we're talking about the 1 point, we needed 1 point, but obviously I was tweeting about, we only needed 1 point, and then there's one of the lads who supports Bury, and he said, but you can guarantee that if Wigan needed to win on the final day, they'd have turned up. And I thought, well, there's that, and I always think, is it really 1 point? Do you know what I mean? We needed 3 wins, and we wouldn't have been in the bottom 4. So probably needed more than 1 point, really. Do you know, we needed comfortable wins. We needed the 1-0, 2-0 with the clean sheet, goal difference, all that kind of stuff.
It's more than just one result that determines your season. You know, there's 46 league games. You don't win and lose a season based off of one result on the last day or whatever it may be. You know, you are where you are after 46 games for a reason, not after one.
How do you think we'll fare in League 2, Danny? Obviously, it's going to be 7 seasons we've had in League 1. We're going back to League 2. That's so-called the Rochdale division that we're taking back, that a few fans have tweeted about. But how do you think we'll fare in League 2?
It's difficult to say, innit? And I remember seeing something on Twitter recently about, like, Sunderland fans having an arrogance in League 1. And we definitely, like, Dale fans are anything but arrogant. But you don't want to kind of come down with, like, we're going to bounce straight back up, because that's naive. Like, teams don't always do that these days. And also a lot of it depends on the squad that we're going to be able to put together. I think, there's some positives in, like, people like Newby and to a greater extent Beasley, who've kind of gone from non-league to League 1 and now are going step down. Do you know what I mean? So, your logic suggests that they'll do all right in League 2 if they did all right in League 1. Then we've got some young players like Conor Grant that we mentioned before, who you'd expect to be pretty handy in League 2 if he's showing that he's got quality in League 1. I don't expect us to struggle, but you just never know with Dale, do you? I think if we can get some decent recruits in, I'd expect us to go after a similar kind of profile of player to Grant, at a bigger club, sort of milling around the under 23s, but he's ready for first team football, ready to take and kind of is prepared to take that jump into first team football in the Football League, rather than kind of wait for his chance in a big squad like Leeds. His Shaughnessy as well was at Leeds, wasn't he? And but so I expect us to go after kind of those types of players. Hopefully we can keep Rathbone, which I'm not really sure, but if we can kind of marry a few people of that profile with kind of people that have done it in League 1, or even a few experienced heads from League 2. It's difficult to say, because you don't know who we're going to release, you don't know who's going to stay, you don't know who's going to come in and take some of our players. Like, if you believe some of the rumours about the financial situation, and we could even lose the players who are under contract. So it's difficult to answer the question, I think, until we know the squad. But I'd be confident. If one thing kind of is in BBM's favour, it's his recruitment. I think his recruitment on the whole has been pretty good.
I'm not too sure. Obviously, it's a difficult answer to. It's a difficult question to answer, really.
Yeah,
Sorry. But yeah, it's something that we're all thinking about. We're thinking how we're going to do next season. You know, a lot of teams think that. You look at Fulham, any team that's been relegated, you think
it's a bit too early, isn't it?
it is too early. It is too early, really.
It's a strange one, really, because again, if you look at three examples of the clubs that went down, from League One last season, if you'd have said to any of them, Bolton, Southend and Tranmere fans, they'd have gone, oh, we'd have a decent crack at League Two. Bolton have gone up just about in automatics. Tranmere have scraped into the playoffs. Southend have done a double drop and are playing non-league football next season. It's such a random division. The fact that it was won by Cheltenham, Cambridge came second. There were two clubs I don't think you'd have predicted to have come in the top two, with fairly young, inexperienced managers in Mark Bonner and I think it's Michael Duff. Yeah, and you just think it's so random, that league. Whereas like Hull won League One this season, Peterborough are up there. You can usually look at League One and go, okay, usually the bigger or the clubs that spend more will tend to be up there. People saying, oh, Salford will be up there this season. They missed out on the playoffs. Exeter will make a good go at it. They missed out. People thought at one point likes of Bolton or Tranmere would walk the league. Didn't happen. It's so hard, League Two, to get out of, because teams are everyone's at sort of that same kind of level. There's no real sort of like big clubs that think they're too big for the league, and then the clubs that are just happy to be there. Everyone's kind of, even if you're a Barrow or Harrogate, they've kind of found their level in the mid end of League Two this season without really being in that much danger of going down. So it's so strange, and it is such a hard one to call. You could bounce straight back, you could drop straight through, you could have a mid-table season. And especially, like you say, it's far too early to call because of recruitment. But even so, it's not just Rochdale's recruitment; it's everyone else's recruitment in the league as well.
Yeah.
Because you just don't know. You just don't know, do you?
When you look at League One, there's a lot of, after a certain time, you get a lot of mini leagues. So in League One, we had the bottom 7 at one point, and that was a thing where it became like a mini league of bottom 7. And then there was arguably one at the top in terms of a lot of those didn't drop down out of the playoffs, and they were there for a while. You don't really get that in League Two as much. Like you say, everyone's sort of the level playing field. I don't think there'll be mini leagues in League Two. I can't see that happening. So it's gonna be a bit of a lottery sometimes. I mean, we've said that about our results have been here, there, and everywhere. Lottery really, but I think the league could be next season. And everybody, something you mentioned in the last episode, Jimmy, about a lot of players have only been given 1-year contracts from other clubs, like say, I don't know, Mansfield or whoever. A lot of, because of the pandemic and things like that situation, they've only been offered 1-year deals, and a few of them will, move to another club and become available. So it could be just like a strange whirlpool of we just might get this player and you think, I don't know how we managed that, where he only had 1 year left at such a place and they're in trouble, but we are, and Mansfield might be, or
because for example, I think I saw, where did I say, I don't know, I think I saw somebody comment about Leyton Orient said they've released quite a few members of their squad. So I don't know much about Leyton Orient squad, but there could be a few pickups there. There'll be all kinds of players that haven't been released yet. So
one thing in our favour, I guess, is that you'd hope that we could compete in terms of a budget with like the likes of Barrow, the likes of Harrogate, some of the other clubs in there. Southend, if they were still in there, you'd like to think we can offer more than Southend. Do you know what I mean? Like we can, and it kind of perhaps removes that get out of jail free card that the board might play in terms of the budget against, when you're looking at our budget against the likes of Sunderland, the likes of Portsmouth, the likes of Peterborough, Hull, Ipswich. You know what I mean? We can't play that card as much in League Two. You'd imagine we'd be able to, offer a decent League Two wage to the players in terms of them, in terms of the market.
No, I mean, with the exception of Bolton this season, there's been no real big sort of clubs in League Two. Really, they don't tend to drop that far down unless they've had real turmoil, like a Portsmouth or a Blackpool financially.
Bradford, arguably, are still a pretty big club.
Oh, Bradford, to be fair, Bradford are in there. But they're a funny one, Bradford. They've just sacked two their joint managers, haven't they? I think it were just like these two sort of backup team coaches, and they took them through to the end of the season. So yeah,
we'll have to see how we get on next season. It's
You'll walk it.
What was that, Matt? Sorry.
You'll walk it, mate. Promoted by April.
110 points.
Won't lose a game. Unbeaten. Calling it now.
Yeah.
Put my house on it.
Won't get announced on Twitter, like, but.
We'll come to the West Ham Everton game. Obviously, we've mentioned quite a lot about Rochdale so far in the podcast, but that was the Everton side had a really good result at the weekend. Did either of you two watch it?
Mm-hmm.
I did.
I actually did.
Did you? Armchair.
So Matt, what do you reckon then? To performance, really. I mean, away from home, so we're bound to do better than at Goodison. So,
I mean, I'll be honest. Not a lot happened in 90 minutes. We scored a goal.
No.
And then defended it, and then at the post, which I've now looked back when we hit the post in the 85th minute. Apparently, it was a handball. I've now watched it back. It's sort of. It was.
I wasn't sure at the time whether it was it Dawson. Somewhat ironically,
I think it's Dawson.
Did it.
Yeah, I think it's Dawson on the line. King heads it. It does, in fairness, come off the post and hits him on the arm. It would have been harsh if they'd given it. As a performance, it showed everything that's been good about our season, which is an Everton side which for a long time hasn't been resilient, has been easily beatable. Where even if we got an early goal, you still felt other teams were going to come back at us and score and equalise and maybe go on to win it. And they defended brilliantly, and they got the goal. There's Ben Godfrey, who had an absolute storming game at centre half, and was probably my man of the match. Actually, I think Alan got it on Sky.
On Sky, they gave it to Alan, didn't they?
Yeah, Calvert-Lewin claimed it for himself. Fair enough, I'll take that. But Godfrey was brilliant because they lost Yeremina with an hour gone to injury. I think it was Mason Holgate came on. But they were spot on. It's one of those results where, again, West Ham, who've been playing, to give them every credit, have been playing really, really well. Some really good football under Moyes. He's got Lingard playing well. But Carlo set it up brilliantly to basically at every given point just to stop what their main attacking intent is. So you know you're going to have Souček on your set pieces, Antonio's a strong centre forward, and Lingard through the middle. And they nullified it, and it was at no point. I think his name is Sufal or Kufal hit the post, but about an hour gone. But at at no other point, I really felt we were that under pressure. It wasn't an amazing performance. Going forward, we didn't do a lot when we got the goal, but I didn't feel like we were ever going to concede, or if we were, it wasn't going to be like a 2-3-1. It might be a dodgy last 10 minutes. Unlucky goal to concede, but no, they were brilliant, and it was one of those performances that, again, you're glad to do. It's just the home form needs sorting out. But that's just this season in a nutshell.
I think I echo your point that if I've been watching, say for example, it wasn't Everton winning 1-0 at Newcastle, if it was West Ham, sorry, say it was, say, Newcastle 1-0 up in the kind of game that was at, I wouldn't be worried about them conceding. But because you've had so much experience of saying, we know how this ends, we don't look like conceding, which means we're going to concede. So it's inevitable. You're on tenterhooks a bit, even though we did nullify a very good West Ham side, and people say, no, West Ham weren't great. What's happened to West Ham? They're bottling it. I think they played all right. I think we did just, like you say, nullify them and do a job on them at their own place, which sometimes you've got to go dig in. As I've said before, shut up shop and just do a job on a team and get the goal when you at the time to sort of boost your morale, sort of stop them from thinking they're going to be getting any ideas, and then just stop them from scoring. I know it sounds simplistic. You got all the great top analysis here on Men in Blue podcast. Just stop them from scoring. It's as simple as that, really. It's all football really is. But yeah, when you look at it at the end of the day, not a lot else really happened. A good finish from Calvert-Lewin. He needed that goal. He's been due one. And I have to say, Ben Godfrey, not only man of the match, but for me, signing of the season for Everton. He has been, and this is in a season where we've got James Rodriguez on a free, and I still think spending 20-odd million on Ben Godfrey at the moment looks like a much better deal. He's been unbelievable, and he should be within the shout of getting to the England squad in the summer. I don't think he'll get in, but he should be, because he's been genuinely, if you don't watch Everton week in, week out, you may not appreciate it. He's one of those players that until he's in your team, you don't realise, a bit like Gareth Barry, when he was in your team, you don't realise how good he is until he plays for you.
He's played pretty much across the entire back four. His debut even was in the Merseyside derby at Goodison, playing at, I think, right back.
I think he filled in at right back for Coleman, didn't he?
Yeah, and then he played left back at some part during the season, and he's played as centre back as part of a 2 and as part of a 3. He's been brilliant.
Surprised he's not been in goal yet, to be honest with you. But
season hasn't finished yet. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? Yeah, there's still time. Could have a dead rubber game at Man City yet at the end of the season, but you can just chuck him on in goal. Why not? Go on, Ben. But no, it's a weird one because I thought for the game West Ham doing really well. They're chasing top 4. Typical of Moyes to go and do a double over us and end our European hopes. Because if we'd have lost on Sunday, it would have been the end of our European hopes. And I still think even though it's close in the table, I still feel like it's very unlikely. I don't know what you think of it, Matt, because I think what concerns me more is we've got two home games.
Yeah, which is daft.
Against Sheffield United, relegated, and Wolves, who have been distinctly average, which has been one of the shocking things this season, is how just their kind of Wolves have been. Just kind of, they haven't really done anything. They've just kind of been around, I think.
But I mean, at best,
I'd be more optimistic if we had 2 away games against them.
Yeah. Yeah, we probably stand more chance at City than we do at home to Sheffield United, which is a bit daft.
Yeah, probably.
I would agree that if we hadn't won that game on Sunday, that would have been it for Europe, because I think teams around us all got fairly decent results. I think Arsenal won, Spurs lost, but Liverpool won. Chelsea,
Leeds beat Spurs, didn't they? So
exactly.
And Leeds are within a shout. So
it was a win that we needed. I mean, we're not getting top 4. That's an obvious thing. But the best we're hoping for is 6th and an absolute push. We've got Villa tomorrow night away, which should be an interesting game. Villa without Watkins and without Grealish makes life a little bit simpler for us. Well, I say without Grealish, you won't start.
But then they didn't have Grealish. They didn't have Grealish at Goodison, did they? And they still beat us 2-1, and we didn't perform.
That's true. That's true. Who knows where we're going to end up? I mean, I think 7th's our best hope, depending on how Spurs finish the season. Which 7th isn't the worst place to finish in the entire world, but they're doing really, really good. It gives us a platform.
You know what?
People
season. Mock this. People mock this sort of new UEFA Conference League that's coming out, and I'm like, well, you know what? If we get a place in it, I'm taking it. I don't care. European football is European football. At the end of the day, whether it's 3rd tier European competition against Sligo Rovers on a Tuesday night, I don't care. It's it's a competition. It could be a new competition. You want to win it at the end of the day, and I think if that's where we end up, if we end up in the Conference League, you can make fun all you want. I don't care. It's there.
I think
and I want to be in it if we can be. If not, you don't deserve it.
But it's also where we probably not belong, as Ron to words. It's where we probably sit right at the moment. But not the top 4 side, barely stretch the most nation.
Not even close.
You look at the levels that I know City and the level, but even United and Leicester and Chelsea. Leicester had a great win last night at United, albeit a United team which didn't have its full strength 11 up by any stretch. But I think they're showing the level we need to get to even think of challenging that either way. Then you got kind of West Ham in the middle of it all, who I think are just kind of happy to be there, which is great.
It's funny, really, the West Ham thing, because it kind of reminds me of us in 2004-05 under Moyes.
Yeah. We kind of ended up in a situation you go, shit,
you look at the squad and go, how? You look at the results and go, how? You look at everything about it and go, how are you up there? But then, did you get lost? You fell over and you end up in 4th or 5th, but it's like that Little Britain thing, isn't it? Where are you, Andy? I fell, and he's up in the tree. It's a bit like West Ham this season. It's like, how'd you end up there? What are you doing up there? I fell. But
it's a strange one with West Ham because I don't particularly. I mean, I look out for Everton, and they're one of my. I like Everton, but West Ham. A lot of people who are sort of neutral to any particular team in the Premier League sort of want them to do it. Really, when it looked like they were going to get the top 4. I mean, they're still in there, obviously, but a lot of people were just like Jesse Lingard, different player altogether. We look out for Craig Dawson because he played for Rochdale, but I wanted West Ham to do it, and they became that team. I mean, obviously, a bit like Leicester a few years ago, where you were like, you sort of didn't mind that they were doing so well, in one respect. But West Ham have sort of become that team where you look at the league, and if they do win 4, and you go, oh yeah, fair play to them.
I think Everton too at the start of the season. I think when Everton were like right up there at the start of the season, had a really good start in there.
I remember those days.
Yeah, we actually started well for a change.
Just like breaking the status quo, really, isn't it? Just like, oh,
That's it. It's somebody different, and I think in light of the most recent news about the Super League and all that kind of stuff, we want to see teams up there that are different. When you look in Serie A, for example, Juventus now are 5th after losing to Milan the other night. You've got Atalanta and Napoli in the top 4. You want as few Super League teams qualifying for the Champions League or Europe as possible, because it just sticks in the face. You just want different teams up there, whether it's West Ham, Leicester, Southampton, who are 17th, I think now, we're up at the top of the table for a while. And you thought, okay, it's a shame it can't be us, but go on, go and make a real go at it, like with Leicester did a couple of years ago, and hopefully will do again with the Champions League. You just want different teams. It's what competition in football's all about, really. You don't want the same old all the time, do you? So I think that's why the neutral's choice have been West Ham this year, and if they make it, great. It'd be fantastic for them.
I don't think they will. I mean, I think the top 4 as it is, the only team I can see dropping out of it will be Leicester, because they've got a pretty tough run in. I mean, they won last night. They've still got to play Chelsea, and I think they're going to play, I think it's Arsenal. Don't quote me on it. I think that Arsenal game's away from home.
Tough running, Arsenal. Tough running. Arsenal at the Emirates is not a tough running. Everyone's at the Emirates at the moment.
Arsenal are currently beating Chelsea, but we'll know that.
Right, okay.
They're the team I think would drop out. Yeah, the opposite. They're the team I would see if anyone's going to drop out. I think it would be them, and I'd have to say Liverpool are probably going to be the team who would sneak in. Again, based on their running, I think they've got a pretty easy. I mean, then again, so have West Ham after their game this week. So it's kind of also. I mean, it's kind of weird that we're sat here with some teams still 4 games to go, and the league's wrapped up, relegation's all finished. Apart from the European places, there isn't a really lot to. I mean, I know Sky was trying to advertise, I think, Brighton against Leeds, and you sit there going, "What? Unless you're a Brighton fan or a Leeds fan, what incentive do I have to watch that game of football at 12 on a Saturday afternoon?"
Yeah, or a sadist.
Or a sadist, yeah, good point. Yeah. Who knows? But it's, I think the best we're hoping for is 6th. If we do get 6th, great. I'll bite your hand off for it. It's been a really good season if that's the case. If we don't, we've only really got ourselves to blame with the home form, and that's kind of it.
We've picked up more points away from home than we have at home this season, which is bizarre because we're usually horrific away from home.
We've won 5 games in London and won 5 games in Goodison.
Yeah.
Which is a brilliant start.
Because we never win in London normally, so I reckon we just move to London.
That's what I'm saying. I reckon we just tell Bramley Moore, just put it in London somewhere, the new stadium.
Don't tell
anyone. Don't tell Twitter, of course not.
Yeah, happy days. Get Rochdale's chief exec in charge of the stadium move, so no one knows about it.
But I mean, it's been an interesting season. I think we're having fans again in the. I think it's Wolves. We've got fans. I think. I don't think it's too early. Sheffield United, it's too early for Sheffield United. But the Wolves game might be a big thing. It's nice to have. I think it's about 4,000 fans, isn't it? It's quite a decent amount.
About 10% of the ground, I think.
10% capacity, isn't it? Have been allowed back in. That'll make a big difference, especially if there is then something to play for. If we beat Sheffield United on Sunday and beat Villa tomorrow, if there's an element of we can really make a push of top 6. We're hoping City have been on the lash for the past 2 weeks after winning the league last night. That was
probably not though, because they've still got the Champions League final.
Yeah, they'll walk that. It'll be fine.
Having lost to Chelsea twice in the last month. Nice one.
I think Chelsea are going to win it.
I think Chelsea could do it.
And a weird part of me, again, the sadist part of me, kind of wants them to do it, yeah. Because it would just be quite funny.
Yeah.
After all this talk about City being brilliant, City being amazing,
Aguero's last game.
Yeah, the prep for Chelsea to go and win it 1-0, like a really crap goal, like a proper, I don't know, Marcos Alonso turns up and sticks something really crap. Would be kind of funny actually, with no fans in as well. Would be even better.
Yeah. In Turkey.
You want like Timo Werner to score? Timo Werner to score a goal like Torres. Remember that one that Torres scored?
Oh yes, that's what you want.
City pushing for a winner.
That's what you want, Gary Neville.
I mean, obviously, we're talking about Chelsea. They're in the FA Cup final. They're in the Champions League final. They could do a double of sorts.
Yeah.
I mean, how much of an achievement would that be? Obviously, Gary Neville was talking about Chelsea manager, how much of a quick impact he's made, and he said it's unbelievable what impact he's made, which he's right, really. They're still in the FA Cup and the Champions League final.
Yeah. I think you're going to watch Mark too, isn't he?
I think you've got to watch Chelsea for the title next season. I think the side he's built, I say he, Frank Lampard's built, but Tuchel's not getting the best out of it. Seriously could go win a title, depending on how City do next year, and if United start buying. It's a tough one because it's how everyone recruits in the summer, but we don't know what that's going to be like because of obviously COVID. Either way, with financial situation, is players' prices going to drop down to accommodate it, or is everyone going to demand higher fees, knowing that they can't then just go out and buy someone as a replacement? It's a very, very interesting summer. You're not going to see this, £1.2 billion I don't think spends in the Premier League like you normally do. So who knows?
I think it's everyone's been promoted and relegated. That's right, isn't it? Everything's been decided.
Apart from playoff places, because playoff places have been decided, but the actual playoffs, yeah.
Shout out to Bolton, I'd say. Obviously, that's League Two, but their turnaround, like they wanted Ever out in January. And that is a guy like he doesn't lack confidence. He called it. It was like we're gonna get promoted. And he was saying it like at the time, and everyone thought he was deluded. So, like, fair play to him and fair play to them. The turnaround, like, I think one of our mates shared the table in January. They were like 18th in January.
Oh, they were right down there, weren't they?
Massive kudos to them.
Yeah.
And like, I don't want to kind of sound bitter, but I like to see Salford miss out. That was nice.
I was quite happy about that.
Don't we all?
I mean, we like Ian Enders. Well, I do anyway, but I was glad.
There's the fact they sacked Richie Wellens to go and get in the playoffs, and they missed out in the playoffs anyway in the Gary Barrier, so you're like...
what was the point of that?
They just give Gary a 2-year deal today, haven't they? He'll be gone by November, I reckon.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Greg, speaking of sackings...
Your
God and Saviour
has been sacked. What's that? Yeah.
After guiding Tranmere to the playoffs,
After that last gasp, scraping into the playoffs, although nearly snatching 8th place from the jaws of promotion, unfortunately, it did look like from, look, I know obviously you were fuming on social media. I saw you were, what a silly decision. Not fuming, no. But you were like, I don't agree with this. And I was like, well, I can see both sides. I like Keith Hill as a manager. I like him as a bloke. I really wanted him to work well at Tranmere, and for a while he was doing all right. He came into a side that was high on form, considering Ian Dawes and Andy Parkinson had taken over joint caretaker charge, who are now backing joint caretaker charge, I should point out. And for a while it looked like it was going quite well, but then James Vaughan's injury didn't help. He's been phenomenal all season, really. But the goals dried up. Some awful, turgid performances, some horrendous thing. Easter Monday got hammered 4-0 at Cheltenham, and it was just dire. On Sky as well. And you think to yourself, well, we don't look anything like the side that we thought we could be going, near into the playoffs. And truthfully, that third spot, or whichever, Bolton were battling for, it was there. It was up for grabs. Forest Green didn't want it. Morecambe seemed to not want it. Newport for a while didn't want it. Enough clubs that were up there, Exeter were up there for a while, they didn't seem to want it. Everyone kept dropping points. All he needs to get a few wins together, certainly at home. But the 0-0 draws, I think, is what's cost him. And the morale, towards the last few games of the season, I think it's been 2 wins in 15 towards the end of the season, and he's still getting to the playoffs. Somehow, I think it goes to show that the morale amongst the fans was so low going into the playoff game against Morecambe, because Morecambe had a really good season, to come fourth. And now... it's sad to see him go. It's a strange time, but all of a sudden there's a lift amongst supporters on social media that, look, whether we win against Morecambe or not, it feels more positive going forward into League 2, or if you go up to League 1, give Ian Dawes the job. People are saying, or Give Dave Chanton the job from Hartlepool. He's done a great job. Ex-Rovers player, of course. It's weird timing. It's sad. I really like Keith Hill. I really want him to land the job like he had at Rochdale. He may even go back to Rochdale. Well, obviously not now. We know BBM's got another year, but...
No, he's already there. They haven't announced it. That's why.
Yeah. He may have been appointed now, for all we know. It's just not been told. But I really want him to get his feet in the door of the role and have a good few years like he had at Rochdale and to really stabilise a club into League One again, because he is capable of doing that. But the football just wasn't working. His style of play, it wasn't working. The creative players like Blackett Taylor, Kieran Morris, weren't being able to show their creativity the way that I think they want to on the pitch. And it's a shame, but I can see both sides, like I say, and I think it ultimately is the best decision for both Hill and for Rovers going forward, because the fans just didn't warm to him.
Yeah,
whether it's a Bolton connection or... You go on, sorry, Danny, go on, mate.
Screenshot. Someone shared me a screenshot because I was surprised at kind of the animosity towards him. And my mate, who's a Tranmere fan, showed me a screenshot from a Nicola Palios tweet after he'd been appointed, saying she's sickened by some of the comments on Twitter. So some people didn't want him originally, which
yeah. Which I don't mean. The only thing I can think of there is the Bolton connection. In fact, he was Bolton manager prior, and obviously Rovers and Bolton have got a bit of a long-standing rivalry going back to the 80s. But then again, we signed Neil Dans from Bolton, and he played well for a while, and there's no issue there. So I've always been one willing to give any manager a chance. Whether it was Mike Jackson, who was the wrong appointment, whether it was Gary Brabin back in the National League days, again wrong appointment, or obviously Mickey Mellon, probably one of the greatest Rovers managers, certainly in my lifetime, up there with Johnny Keaton and John Aldridge, but it just didn't fit. It's when the manager doesn't fit at a club, it's a bit like a League Two version of Brian Clough at Leeds. It just didn't fit. That's the only time you'll ever hear Keith Hill compared to Brian Clough by me personally. Greg, I know you do it on a daily basis, but
I see. I think the way I saw, I watched the video where everyone was sort of kicking off about, and I wasn't really particularly shocked by it, because Keith Hill notoriously is a bear with a sore ass. That's what he's been for 15 years. Everybody knows that. And I don't know, and it's sort of like you know what you're going to get with Mourinho when Spurs appointed him. And I sort of feel like you can copy and paste that with Hilly in some respects, because you know what his attributes are. You know what he's like as a well, fans will know. Not everybody, but people will know what he's like. And I just watched it and I thought, I'm not really shocked by it, is some of the things he was saying, and I don't think they were massively offensive or anything like that. He could see what he were trying to do and I could see what he were trying to say, and it just came out wrong, and he was just like a grumpy old man really with some of his comments. But he's been like that at Rochdale, he's been like that at Barnsley don't like him, things like that. Bolton, we've got two mates who are Bolton fans, they don't like him, but it's sort of like, we mentioned it the other week, Jimmy, and Matt, we mentioned it the other week about Everton don't like Big Sam. Dale don't like John Coleman, but Bolton like Big Sam and Accrington like Coleman. There's always going to be somebody that defends that manager. So me and Danny could say, we hate Coleman because of X, Y, Z, Gary Jones argument, blah, blah, blah. But there'll be Accrington fans that have great points and great bullet points about why they think he's absolutely amazing. And they'll be the same for Big Sam with you guys, where you don't particularly like him, but then you'll get a Bolton fan who'll go, but hang on a minute, XYZ, XYZ. So I think that's the case with Hilly. We love him for what he did at Dale, and there's a poll on Twitter that me and Danny have seen, and a few others, about would you have BBM or Hilly, and BBM marginally just won by about 3%. So it's people would probably have him back, but he is a bear with a sore ass, and sometimes I do think that in this day and age, a lot of people get offended quite easily. I think that's the culture these days, where he could have said, I don't know. And something that I thought were a bit strange about the interview was nearly 16 minutes long. It's like, you look at Rochdale's post-match, and it's 3 minutes max, and you look at, say, Salford with Gary, It's three minutes max. I don't know if that's the thing for Tranmere, where they just interview people for 15 minutes afterwards. But if you're going to get 15 minutes of Hilly talking, you're going to get a pipe bomb, really. It's going to be, it's you're asking for it, sort of like Gervais at the Globes. You're asking for a bit of a problem. If you give Hilly 20 minutes, you're going to get something. You're going to get a lot of sound bites from Hilly in 16 minutes. That's what I got from it. But I could be wrong. It
seemed like to me he knew he was going. The one after the game on was it Saturday or Sunday, what day it was? You could sense he knew he was out of a job. He kind of went because I can't remember what he was really saying, but it did come with a caveat of you could almost just tell that I'm going.
He sort of spoke about the fans, didn't he? And it's like, as soon as you tell the fans, it was quite clear. Unfortunately, I think he'd lost the dressing room. I don't know how. I don't know why. I feel like he'd lost the dressing room. But when you speak out about the fans, no matter what club you are, it's not going to look. It's not a good PR move. Let's put it that way. It's not a good image for your club if your manager and your fans are at war. And in the end, you can't sack all the fans. So, and they're the ones who pay all the wages and put the money in the coffers of the club, especially in these days and ages. So, yeah, it's a tricky one. It's a tricky one because I want him so much to succeed, and I hope he does. And I can see he's a Rochdale legend, and he's done so many great things in management. It just didn't fit at Rovers, and his performances and the results, despite being in the playoffs, were evidently not good enough to drop from an absolute shoe-in in the automatics potentially to nearly falling out the playoffs completely in 15 games is not good enough though. It's not good enough.
Kind of like probably didn't know enough about the ill feeling, so it came out quite shocking, to see, objectively looking, they're in the playoffs, they're about to, go in the playoffs, he's got them to the playoffs, he's done a good job, but speaking to my mate and hearing what Jimmy's saying there, you don't know, do you? You don't know what's going on behind the scenes. What I said about it, kind of to you guys in our WhatsApp, is that he's got a lot of credit in the bank at Rochdale, so we kind of tolerate his sort of attacks on the fans and his little turns of phrase that people have kind of seemed to have had enough of at Tranmere, because he does talk nonsense sometimes, and you know what I mean. To us, it's part of his charm, and but people Dale fans aren't blinkered too. They know that he's got his flaws, but he just gets away with a lot more, especially considering kind of what he's done in the past, and kind of that he's not really had a bad, apart from obviously when he got sacked, we left. He's not really had a bad period. So the bad period that he's had with Dale, the bad times he's had with Dale, are very kind of minuscule compared to all the good times he's had. So it's whereas if he's been in Tranmere since November, is it? And it's been bad pretty much all the time. Then you kind of don't have that nice times and good times to fall back on in terms of your appraisal of him. So all you're seeing is a guy who's angrily attacking the fans, who's not getting results. It's only a matter of time, innit? And I think a similar situation at Bolton, really. But I think he was unlucky at Bolton in terms of the finances. I think that was I think that was his dream job. I felt a bit sorry for him. I think that was his dream job, and it was a bit of a poison chalice, really, because he went into it in that financial situation and tried to kind of work his magic, and then he started arguing with their fans, which he does, like you said there. I said that's textbook, really, calling out the fans, does it all the time. And he's, when the fans have been in the stadium at Rochdale, he's had little arguments. He's turned around to the main stand and started having an argument with someone. He's done that a few times and had to apologise. But it's just how he is. It's just him. And people kind of say he gets a bit of a smoother ride with Rochdale fans because he's kind of what he's achieved. You kind of outweigh it.
No, absolutely, and that's entirely understandable, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, some of it. I mean, me and Danny are in a different group chat with the lads from back home, and we read some of the comments from other Tranmere fans, and you're just thinking, like, some of the new phrases that have come out recently, like microwave football. And like one of our mates, Alex, has said, I'm keen to understand what microwave football is. It's just like, what is microwave football? Do you like? And then, I know you used to chat shy at Rochdale, but I think you said it the other day, Danny, about you could probably get away with a lot when you're winning, you know? You can say funny phrases, and you can wear pink pants, and you can do daft shit, and if you're winning and you're getting promoted, no one's bothered. But I don't think you can wear pink pants and slag the fans off when you're getting walloped, you know, like getting beat. So
when you grind out 0-0 draws or losing 4-0 on national television, you can't go around saying microwave football and...
We'd just like to thank everybody for listening to the podcast. We've got a few listeners. I've managed to track a few people that are in the States that are listening to us. We've got 2 listeners. Is it Alaska somewhere or something? I can't remember where it is. I'll have a look in a minute.
Yeah.
But...
Can we just point out that we're not a police podcast? If anyone thinks the Men in Blue refers to any policemen around the world, maybe you're getting confused when you Google it. This isn't like a Line of Duty fandom podcast or anything, so just to let you know.
We don't love Sting and the police. Or...
Yeah, or the Blue Man Group. We're not them either.
We could get the actual Blue to sing a song. Oh, there you go.
Funny story, by the way, just before we go, I don't know if anyone saw this. The band Blue were accidentally flown to Milan recently.
Right.
Because the people that booked them over in Italy thought they were actually Blair.
Fucking hell. Is that literally getting lost in translation there then, or what is that? We'd just like to thank Danny for joining us for this episode, because obviously he's joining us through the powers of the internet from Oman, which we're quite conscious of the time, and it must be silly o'clock over there. But thank you very much for coming on, Danny.
Cheers,
thank
Danny.
you
very much.
Cheers,
thank you, Danny.
We'll have you on next season or what have you, when everything's hopefully back to normal.
When we're good, just announce it like...
Oh, don't announce it.
Don't tell it.
Sports Social Podcast Network.